teased the deadliest alien girl alive. Now she sleeps on the human colony ship. Aurora drifted through the silent void near the edge of known space, its hull scarred by micrometeorites and old battles, its crew long gone. Only the hum of failing life support remained until the distress signal came in garbled and weak from a nearby derelict alien vessel. Captain Lisa Moran of the United Earth Patrol cruiser Frontier had seen her share of ghost ships, but this one felt different. The alien craft was sleek black and covered in strange glowing runes that pulsed like a slow heartbeat. Her science officer warned her not to board it, but Lisa had never backed down from a mystery. Inside the ship, the air was cold and thick with the scent of ozone and something metallic. The walls shimmered as if alive and the floor seemed to shift under her boots. She found the source of the signal in the heart of the vessel, a stasis pod. Unlike any human design, it glowed faintly blue. And inside lay a girl. She looked human at first glance. Pale skin, long dark hair floating in the fluid around her, but her eyes, when they opened, were not human. They burned with violet fire and her fingers ended in sharp claws. She spoke no words, only stared, with ancient eyes that held galaxies within them. Lisa raised her hands slowly. "I mean no harm," she said. The girl tilted her head, then stepped out of the pod. The fluid evaporated instantly, leaving her dry in a simple black suit that clung to her. "Formed like second skin, Kayla." The girl said, her voice soft but carrying the weight of stone mountains. "I was sleeping. You woke." Melissa swallowed hard. "We heard your signal. We thought you needed help." Kayla smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. "You humans always think you are helping, but you only bring chaos. My people sealed me here to protect you from me." Before Lisa could respond, alarms blared through the Frontier. The alien ship was powering up its weapon systems, targeting the human. Cruiser Kayla turned toward the sound, her eyes flaring brighter. "They followed me," she whispered. "The Devourers, they never stop hunting." A massive shadow loomed outside the viewport, a ship shaped like a jagged tooth bristling with weapons and dark energy. It fired without warning. The Frontier shook violently. Lisa stumbled, but Kayla stood unmoved. "You have a choice, human." Kayla said, "Turn your ship and flee or stand with me." And Lisa did not hesitate. "We stand with you." Kayla nodded, then stepped forward. Her body began to change. Light poured from her skin and wings of pure energy unfurled behind her. She shot through the hull into space, leaving a trail of violet fire. What followed was not a battle. It was a slaughter. Kayla moved faster than sensors could track. She tore through the Devourer ship like paper, her claws shredding armor, her voice singing a song that made metal scream and warp. She was not just a warrior. She was a force of nature, born of a dead star and raised by a race that feared even their own godson, the bridge of the Frontier. Lisa watched in awe and terror as the enemy ship exploded into 1,000 burning pieces. Kayla returned moments later, calm as if she had merely taken a walk. "They will send more," she said. "The Devourers do not forgive, they do not forget." "Then we will be ready," Lisa replied. Kayla studied her for a long time, then nodded. "You are strange, human. Most run from power. You run toward it." Days passed as the Frontier limped back toward human space. Kayla stayed aboard, silent most of the time, watching the stars with eyes that never blinked. She ate little, spoke less. But when she did, her words carried weight. One night, Lisa found her on the observation deck, staring at Earth in the distance. "Why did your people seal you away?" Lisa asked. Kayla did not look at her. "Because I killed my own kind," she said softly. "They tried to use me as a weapon against the Devourers, but I could not be controlled. I burned their cities to stop their madness. They called me monster, so they put me to sleep, hoping the universe would forget." Lisa sat beside her. "You are not a monster," Kayla finally turned, her violet eyes softening just a little. "Maybe not with you." Weeks later, the Devourers returned. Not one ship, but a fleet. 100 black teeth tearing through space toward the Frontier, Earth's last line of defense. This time, Lisa did not ask Kayla to fight. She simply opened the bay doors and said, "Go." Kayla smiled, that same dangerous smile, and launched into the void. The battle raged for hours. The Frontier took heavy damage, its shields failing, its weapons spent. But Kayla fought like a storm. She split ships in half with her bare hands. She summoned black holes with a whisper. She turned their own weapons against them until the sky was filled with fire and silence. When it was over, Kayla returned exhausted. Her wings dimmed. Her skin cracked with glowing lines. She collapsed on the deck. Lisa caught her before she hit the floor. "You did it," Lisa whispered. Kayla shook her head. "No, they will keep coming until I am gone, or they are." "Then stay with us," Lisa said. "Let us fight beside you." Kayla looked into her eyes, and for the first time something like hope flickered in the violet depths. "Maybe," she said softly. "Maybe. I am tired of sleeping." In the months that followed, Kayla became legend among humans. The silent guardian, the violet angel who stood between Earth and the endless dark. She trained human soldiers, taught them how to see the unseen, how to fight what should not be fought. But at night she still wandered the decks alone until Lisa joined her. They would sit in silence, watching the stars, neither needing words. One evening Kayla asked, "Why do you stay with me, human? You could have left. You could have..." Hidden Lisa smiled, "Because someone has to remind you that you are not alone." Kayla reached out and took her hand. Her touch warmed despite the cold of space. "Then I will not sleep again," she said, "not while you are awake." And so the deadliest alien girl alive found a new purpose, not as a weapon, not as a monster, but as a protector. And though the devourers still came from the dark corners of the galaxy, they found something new waiting for them. Not just fire and fury, but hope, and it wore the face of a human girl who dared to wake a sleeping storm and call her friend. Months passed and peace settled over the solar system like a soft blanket. But peace never lasts long when the universe is full of old wounds and older enemies on a quiet patrol near the Kuiper Belt. A mining drone sent a strange signal, not of metal or ice, but of sound, a song in a language no human had ever heard yet. Kayla froze when she heard it. It was her mother's lullaby. Lisa saw the change in her. Instantly, Kayla's silver eyes dimmed. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but from memory. She had not spoken of her family, not once in all the time they had known each other. "Someone is alive," she whispered. The source led them to a derelict station orbiting Pluto. Its structure, ancient. Its walls covered in the same runes as Kayla's original. Stasis Pud Butt faded, cracked with time inside. They found not a person, but a memory core. A small crystal pulsing with soft light. Kayla touched it and collapsed to her knees. Visions flooded her mind, her mother placing her in the pod. Tears on her face whispering, "I do not seal you to punish you, I seal you to save you. The devourers are coming for all who shine too brightly." I knelt beside her, holding her as the visions passed. "They thought you were the only one," Kayla said, voice raw. "But my mother sent this signal before she died. She hid it here, hoping someone like you would find me." The crystal held more than memories, it held coordinates. A place far beyond the edge of mapped space. A sanctuary her people built in secret before they vanished. "We have to go," Lisa said without hesitation. Preparations were swift. The frontier was refitted for deep-range travel. Its crew now loyal, not just to Earth, but to the quiet alien girl who had saved them all. Kayla spent days in the ship's core, syncing her energy with its systems, making it more than metal, more like a living thing, as they left the solar system behind. Kayla stood on the observation deck, silent for hours. Lisa joined her one night, holding 2 cups of hot tea. "Do you think you will find them?" she asked. Kayla shook her head. "Not them, but their truth." The journey took weeks through empty space where stars grew sparse and time felt thin. They passed nebulae that sang in colors no eye could see, and black holes that hummed. Old songs. Kayla listened to them all as if they were voices of the lost. Then they found it. A ring of asteroids floating in perfect silence at the center, a planet small and blue with 2 suns orbiting it gently. The sanctuary. As the frontier approached, the planet's surface shimmered not with cities but with trees, oceans, and soft glowing lights. No weapons, no ships, just life. They landed in a meadow where the grass glowed faintly underfoot, and the air smelled of rain, and something sweet. Kayla stepped out first, her breath catching. "This is where they came to forget war," she said. They were met not by soldiers but by elders, their skin pale like Kayla's, their eyes silver but tired. They bowed not to her power but to her pain. "You survived," They said. Kayla did not speak for a long time, then she asked, "Why did you leave me?" "Because you were the fire," they replied, "and we were the ash. We could not carry you." And Lisa stood back watching the reunion. Not as an outsider, but as witness. This was not a homecoming. It was a reckoning. Over days, Kayla walked the forests and hills of the sanctuary, learning what her people had become. They had abandoned technology not out of weakness but choice. They chose to live small, quiet lives. So the devourers would never find them again. But Kayla had not lived small. "You brought the storm with you," one elder said, not in anger but in sorrow, "and the storm saved us." Lisa replied, stepping forward. The elders looked at her, then at Kayla, and something shifted in their eyes. "Perhaps we were wrong," they said. Kayla spent nights speaking with her mother's recorded voice from the crystal. Learning the truth, her people had not feared her power. They feared what it would cost her to use it every time. She fought a piece of her soul burned away. They sealed her not to protect others, but to protect her from herself. But Lisa had given her something they never could, a reason to burn and still remain. One morning, Kayla stood at the edge of a cliff, watching the twin suns rise. "I cannot stay," she said. Lisa stood beside her. "I know. This place is peace, but peace is not enough. Not while others suffer." The elders did not try to stop her. They gave her a seed from the oldest tree on the planet, a living memory of home. "Plant it where you fight," they said. So our peace grows even in war. On the return journey, Kayla was different, quieter but stronger. She no longer flinched at her own power. She carried it like a song, not a weapon. Back in soul system, word had spread of the sanctuary, not as a secret, but as a promise. Earth began to change again, not through force but through choice. Schools taught empathy as survival. Hospitals healed minds, not just bodies, and children dreamed of stars not as places to conquer, but as homes to protect. Kayla planted the seed in the heart of Mars. In a crater-turned garden, it grew fast, its leaves silver, its flowers glowing with soft light. People came from all over to see it, not as a monument, but as a reminder, you are not alone. Then the signal came again, not from devourers, but from another human ship lost near Alpha Centauri. Its message broken, but clear: "Help us. They are here." Lisa and Kayla looked at each other. No words needed. The frontier launched within the hour, its hull now marked with silver vines from the sanctuary, its crew ready not for battle but for rescue. As they jumped to warp, Kayla stood on the bridge, her hand resting on the console. Not as a weapon, not as a monster, but as a guardian. Lisa joined her. "You ready?" she asked. Kayla smiled, the first real smile Lisa had ever seen. "I was born ready," she said. And the ship vanished into the light, fair behind them. On Mars, the silver tree bloomed under twin suns, its roots deep in red soil, its branches reaching for the stars, and in every home that watched it grow, a child whispered a new lullaby. One of courage and kindness and quiet strength. The universe was still vast and dark, but now it had light, and the light had a name. Not Kayla, but us together. They flew not to end the dark, but to remind it that even the smallest flame can make it step back. And for the first time in history, humanity did not go to the stars to take, but to give, to heal, to stand beside those who shine. And in that choice they found their true power, not in weapons, not in fear, but in the simple act of saying, "I am here for you," as the frontier disappeared into the endless sky. Lisa reached for Kayla's hand, and Kayla took it without hesitation. No words, no fanfare, just two souls, moving as one toward whatever came next, and that was enough. The frontier dropped out of warp near Alpha Centauri, its sensors immediately overwhelmed by chaos. A human colony ship named the Haven hung broken in orbit around a dead moon, its hull torn open like a gutted animal, and drifting among the wreckage were dozens of small escape pods blinking weakly in the dark. Lisa ordered a rescue sweep while Kayla stood motionless on the bridge. Her silver eyes narrowed, not at the damage, but at the silence. There were no enemy signals, no weapons fire, no devourer, signatures, just emptiness, and that worried her more than any fleet. They boarded the Haven through a ruptured airlock. The interior was cold and dark bodies floated in zero gravity, not torn by weapons, but frozen stiff, as if all heat had been sucked. From them in an instant, Kayla knelt beside one and placed a hand on the frozen face. They did not die fighting. She said they died forgetting. Lisa frowned. What do you mean? Kayla stood, her voice low. This is not the Devourers. This is something older, something that feeds on memory, not fleshes. If in answer, a whisper echoed through the ship, not in sound but in thought. A voice made of static and sorrow. You remember? Michaela stiffened, her breath catching. No, she whispered. Who is it? Lisa asked. The one who taught my people to fear the light. Kayla said the Weaver. Long ago, before the Devourers, there was another enemy, a being born from the first moment. A mind asked, why am I alone? It learned to survive by stealing the memories of others, making them forget who they were until they simply stopped existing. The Weaver was thought gone, erased by Kayla's ancestors, but now it had returned, drawn by the light of the sanctuary tree on Marsand. It had found a new way to feed, not by destroying minds, but by turning them against each other. On the Haven log showed the colonists turning violent over nothing. A child accused of stealing bread, a pilot blamed for a system glitch. Arguments escalated into riots, then bloodshed, all while the Weaver watched. From the shadows feeding on their fear and confusion, Kayla knew what had to be done. We cannot fight it with weapons, she told Lisa. It lives in the spaces between thoughts. Then how do we stop it? Lisa asked. We remember, she said. For them, they gathered. The survivors from the pod's 23 souls, hollow-eyed and trembling, brought them aboard the frontier. Kayla did not speak to them. She sat among them in silence and began to hum her mother's lullaby, the same one from the crystal at first. Nothing happened then. One child blinked and whispered, My name is Elithan, another, I am Marion. By one they remembered who they were, but the Weaver was not done. It followed them, not as a ship or a creature, but as a glitch in reality. Lights flickered, voices echoed from empty corridors, time stuttered for seconds at a time. Kayla knew it was testing her, so she opened herself. On the main deck she stood in a circle of soft light drawn from her own core and invited the crew to join her, not to fight, but to share memories, happy ones first. Lisa spoke of her first flight, a small shuttle over the Pacific at sunrise. Mara talked about baking bread with her grandmother. Eli described catching fireflies in a jarkayela, listened and wove their memories into a shield, not of energy but of truth. The Weaver struck that night. The frontier shuddered, not from impact but from within. Walls melted into childhood bedrooms. Voices of lost loved ones called from the shadows. Kayla did not flinch. She stepped into the heart of the illusion and faced the Weaver, not as a monster but as a lonely child. You do not have to steal, she said. You can belong. The Weaver hesitated, its form shifting from shadow to light to nothing no one has ever offered before. It whispered. Then, be the first, Kayla said. For 3 days the ship floated in silence as Kayla and the Weaver spoke, not in words but in shared feeling. She showed it the sanctuary, the silver tree, the hands of humans holding hers, the taste of tea on a quiet evening, and the Weaver wept, not tears but light, pure and warm. When it was over, the glitches stopped, the survivors slept peacefully, and the frontier hummed with a new kind of energy. The Weaver did not vanish. It chose to stay, not as a passenger, but as a guardian. It wove itself into the ship's core, not to control but to protect, becoming the quiet voice that warned of danger, the gentle nudge that reminded a pilot to check their oxygen. Lisa found Kayla on the observation deck watching the twin suns of Alpha Centauri rise. You gave it a home, she said. Kayla nodded. Everyone deserves a second chance. They returned to Sol, not as heroes but as healers. The story of the Haven spread, and people began to understand that the greatest threats were not always outside but within. Fear, doubt, loneliness. Kayla started a new program, not in military bases but in schools and hospitals. She taught people how to anchor themselves in memory, how to find light, even in the darkest thought. The Weaver helped too. Not seen but felt, in the way a lost child suddenly remembered their parents' face, in the way a soldier woke from nightmare and knew they were safe. Months passed and life settled into a new rhythm. Then a new signal came, not from deep space, but from Earth itself. A distress call from Geneva. The same city that once tried to trap Kayla, now its leaders begged for help. A strange sickness had spread. Not of the body, but of the mind. People forgot their names, their loved ones, their language. They wandered. The streets like ghosts. Kayla knew instantly. The weaver's old kin had come not to feed but to reclaim. They arrived over Geneva to find the city wrapped in a fog that shimmered with false memories. People walked into walls believing they were doors, kissed strangers thinking they were spouses. Kayla did not land. She stepped out of the frontier into the sky and began to sing, not a song of power, but of home. Her voice carried the lullaby. The silver tree, the hands of Lisa, the laughter of Eli and Mara, every true memory she had gathered since waking. The fog trembled, then tore apart, revealing 3 figures floating above the city. Tall, thin beings made of fractured glass, their eyes empty, their mouths full of stolen words. "You gave our brother to the light one," hissed, "and you took his pain," Kayla replied. "You left him alone for eons. She was weak," they said, "and you are cruel." She said, "They attacked not with weapons but with lies," showing her visions of Lisa betraying her of Earth, turning on her of herself, burning the sanctuary to ash. But Kayla did not look away. She held each lie in her hands and whispered the truth beneath. "It Lisa loves me. Arth is learning. The sanctuary grows, one by one. The glass beings cracked not from force, but from being seen. They shattered into dust that fell like rain over Geneva, and where it touched the sick. They woke. A woman hugged her child, remembering her name. A man held his wife's hand and whispered, "I know you." Kayla landed gently in the city square, exhausted but calm. Lisa ran to her. "You did it again." Kayla shook her head. "No, we did." For the first time, the people of Earth did not cheer. They bowed not to power but to compassion. In the weeks that followed, the world changed again. Laws were rewritten to protect the vulnerable. Schools taught memory as a sacred act, and every home planted a seed from the sanctuary. Kayla and Lisa walked the streets not as legends but as neighbors. One evening, they sat on a bench in a park in New York, the silver leaves of a young tree rustling above them. "Do you think it is over?" Lisa asked. Kayla watched a child chase fireflies just like Eli once did. "No," she said, "but now we know how to fight, not with fire but with remembrance." And as the sun set over the city, lights flickered not from glitches but from joy. The universe was still vast but no longer lonely, because somewhere in the heart of it 2 girls chose to stay awake together. Years passed and the solar system thrived under a quiet peace. The silver trees from the sanctuary grew on every world, their leaves shimmering with soft light, their roots weaving through cities like veins of hope. Kayla no longer wore the black suit of her past. She dressed in simple clothes, often seen walking through markets or sitting in parks, listening more than speaking. Lisa remained at her side, not as a captain but as a partner in every sense. They shared a small home on Mars with a garden full of glowing flowers and a view of the twin moons. But peace is never the end. It is only the breath before the next storm. It began with a whisper, not in space but in dreams. People across Sol reported the same vision, a vast ocean under a black sky and a voice calling not in words but in longing, "Come home." Kayla woke one night drenched in cold sweat, her silver eyes wide. "It is not a call," she said, "it is a police." Sat up beside her. "What do you mean? My people did not all go to the sanctuary," she said. "Some chose a different path. They fled into the void not to hide but to become something else. They merged with the dark, not as enemies, but as guardians of the deep silence. And now they are waking." The dreams grew stronger until even machines began to echo them. Navigation systems pointed toward a dead zone beyond the Orion Arm, a place where no star had shone for 10,000 years. Earth Command wanted to send a probe, but Lisa knew better. "We go ourselves," she said. The frontier was older now, its hull scarred, but its heart stronger. Kayla had woven the weaver deeper into its core, so the ship itself dreamed and remembered as they traveled. The journey took months through regions of space where light bent strangely and time moved in spirals. They passed ghost stars that hummed forgotten songs and nebulae that wept stardust. Then they found a sphere of perfect blackness floating in the center of nothing. No radiation, no gravity, no sound. Kayla stepped onto the observation deck, her hands pressed against the glass. "They are not hiding," she said. "They are waiting." As the frontier drifted closer, the black sphere rippled like water and a voice filled their minds. Not hostile, not gentle, just vast. You have brought the light. Bakila answered, not with words but with feeling. She showed them her journey. The battles, the losses, the quiet moments with Lisa. The taste of tea, the sound of children laughing. The sphere opened, not with violence, but with invitation. Inside was not emptiness but an ocean of liquid starlight stretching forever in every direction, and floating in it were beings made of living shadow, their forms shifting like smoke, their eyes full of ancient sorrow. You left us, Kayla said. We did not leave. They replied, we became the silence so the devourers would have nothing to consume. Kayla understood then her people had not abandoned her. They had sacrificed themselves to starve the darkness by becoming it. But now the devourers were gone and the silence had grown too heavy. We forgot how to sing, they said. Kayla stepped out of the frontier, not into vacuum but into the ocean of starlight. It held her like a cradle. Then she began to hum, her mother's lullaby. Soft at first, then stronger, weaving through the liquid light until the shadows began to glow one by one. The beings remembered their names, their faces, their joy. The ocean brightened, and for the first time in 10,000 years, the deep void Sanglisa watched from the bridge, tears in her eyes as the black sphere turned into a nebula of silver and violet light. When Kayla returned, she was changed not in form but in presence. She carried the weight of her people's memory, not as a burden, but as a gift. They will follow us, she said. Back to Solon, so they did not as an army, but as a chorus. The beings of the deep void took new forms shaped by human stories. They became teachers, healers, artists. Some chose to live among humans, others stayed in space, tending to the quiet place. On Earth they built a new kind of school, not for war or science, but for listening, where children learned to hear the song in the wind, the story in the rain, the memory in the star Skyla taught there, often sitting cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by wide-eyed kids. Tell me about the first time you felt afraid, one child asked. Kayla smiled. When I woke alone in the dark and thought, no one would ever see me as anything but a weapon. But Lisa saw you, the child said. Yes, she said. And that changed everything. Lisa stood in the doorway, watching her heart full. That night they walked home under the silver trees, their hands brushing. Do you ever miss the quiet of the void? Kayla asked it. Lisa shook her head. The quiet was beautiful. But this is better. This, being here with you. Kayla stopped and turned to her. I have something to ask. Lisa's breath caught. Not a proposal, not a grand declaration, but something deeper. Will you stay with me, not just in this life, but in the next and the next after that? Lisa frowned. What do you mean? Kayla took her hand and placed it over her heart where a soft light pulsed. My people learned to carry their souls beyond death, not as ghosts but as seeds of light. They can be reborn if someone remembers them truly. I want you to remember me, she said always. Lisa's eyes filled with tears. I already do, and in that moment the silver trees across Mars bloomed all at once, their light rising into the sky like a promise. Years turned into decades. Lisa aged, her hair gray, her steps slower but her eyes still bright. Kayla remained unchanged but never distant. She walked beside her every day, holding her hand in crowds, sitting with her in silence on quiet evenings. When Lisa finally closed her eyes for the last time, it was under the twin moons on their garden bench. Kayla held her close, whispering the lullaby one last time. The next morning, the sanctuary tree in their yard bore a new flower glowing with soft human warmth, and in a hospital on Earth a baby girl opened, her eyes not violet, not silver, but deep brown with a familiar spark. Kayla visited her that night. The child reached for her hand and smiled. No words were needed. The cycle continued, not as legend, but as love. And far out in the deep void, the beings of silence watched over Soul, not as guardians, but as family. The universe was still vast, but no longer empty, because somewhere in its heart, a human girl had dared to wake a sleeping storm. And in return the storm had learned to dream, and dream it did, of tea on quiet mornings, of fireflies in jars, of hands held in the dark, and of a home that waited, always for her return. The frontier drifted in high orbit above Mars, its hull patched with emergency plating, its engines running on borrowed time. But it was home now for both humans and one alien girl who no longer slept in stasis. Kayla had taken to wearing simple, human clothes, a gray jacket and dark pants, though her violet eyes still glowed faintly in the dim corridors. She walked alone most days. But Lisa always found Hearth Command had grown nervous. Rumors spread of a weapon walking among them. They sent orders to contain study or, if necessary, eliminate the alien threat. Lisa refused every directive. She locked the orders in a drawer and told her crew the truth. Kayla was not their enemy. She was their shield. Meanwhile, deep in the outer rim, the Devourers gathered again, not in ships this time, but in something worse. A living swarm made of shadow and hunger. It consumed stars not for fuel but for silence. It erased light and memory and hope. And it was coming. Kayla felt it. First, a cold ache. Behind her eyes she woke, gasping in the middle of the night, her skin steaming with violet mist. Lisa rushed in to find her curled on the floor, trembling. "They are changing," she whispered. "They learned from me. They are becoming something I cannot kill, with claws or fire." "What do you mean?" Lisa asked, kneeling beside her. "They are building a god," she said, "a hollow god made from stolen souls of every world they have eaten. It has no mind, only hunger, and it is heading for Sol." Panic spread through the fleet, but Lisa called an emergency council. She stood before admirals and generals with Kayla at her side. Silent, but present. "We cannot run," she said. "And we cannot hide. The only way is through." Kayla stepped forward then, and spoke not in words, but in feeling, a pulse of energy that made every human in the room see the truth. The Devourers were not just invaders. They were a plague of emptiness. And if Sol fell, nothing would remain. So the United Earth Fleet prepared not for war, but for sacrifice. They retrofitted old freighters with pulse cores, turned mining drones into scouts, and gave every soldier a vial of neural dampener in case the hollow god tried to break their minds. Kayla trained with them day and night. She showed them how to anchor their thoughts in memory, how to fight fear with focus. She did not speak much, but when she did, her voice carried calm like deep water. One young pilot named Maya asked her, "Why do you help us? You could leave. You are stronger than all of us." Kayla looked at her for a long time, then said, "Strength without purpose is noise. You gave me purpose." The day came sooner than expected. The sky over Mars darkened, not with clouds but with absence. Stars blinked out one by one as the hollow god approached. It was not a ship. It was a tear in reality. A black sphere ringed with screaming faces of the lost. The fleet launched in waves, first the drones, then the fighters, then the heavy cruisers. Kayla rode in the lead fighter, not as a passenger, but as its heart. She linked her energy to its core, turning metal into living light. The battle began in silence. No explosions, no radio chatter, only the hum of dying stars and the pull of the void. Kayla flew straight into the center of the hollow god, her wings blazing. Like twin suns, she did not attack. She reached inside the darkness and pulled. Memories flooded out. Not hers, but those of the devoured, 1,000 civilizations, 1,000,000 voices crying for remembrance. She gathered them in her arms like children and held them close. The hollow god shuddered. It had no soul. But now it felt something: pain, regret, longing on the frontier. Lisa watched the feed, her hands clenched tight. This was not a fight. It was a rescue. Kayla screamed then, not in rage but in sorrow, and the hollow god began to collapse, not from damage but from being seen, truly seen for the first time. As it shrank, it released everything it had taken. Stars reignited, planets reformed, light returned. But Kayla did not come back. Her fighter floated, silent at the edge of the reformed system, its core dark. Its wings gone. Lisa took a shuttle alone. She found Kayla drifting in space, eyes closed, skin pale as moonstone. She brought her aboard and held her hand for 3 days until she woke. "You came back," Lisa whispered. Kayla opened her eyes. They were no longer violet but soft silver. Like Donnie remembered something she said while I was inside the dark. "My people did not seal me away to protect humans. They sealed me because they were afraid of what I might become if I ever felt love." Lisa frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means," she said gently, "that I am changing because of you. On Earth they called it the miracle of Sol. No one understood what happened, but everyone felt it. A shift in the air, a lightness in the soul. Kayla was no longer whispered about as a monster but spoken of in awe as the one who turned darkness into dawn. Still, Earth Command remained wary. They invited Lisa and Kayla to a ceremony in Geneva, a public event to honor their service. But Lisa sensed danger in the way the officials smiled, too wide, their eyes too still. The night before the ceremony, Kayla stood on the balcony of their hotel room overlooking the city lights. "They will try to take me," she said, "not with weapons but with words, with laws." With fear, Lisa joined her. "I won't let them." Kayla turned to her. "You could walk away from this, Lisa. You could have a normal life, and you could vanish into the stars again." Lisa replied, "But you stayed, so I stay." The next day at the ceremony, as speeches droned on about unity and peace, a hidden signal pulsed through the building, a neural net designed to trap alien minds. Kayla stiffened her breath. Catching, they activated it. For a moment the world went silent. Then Kayla laughed softly, not a sound of fear but of pity. "You think your little cage can hold a storm," she said aloud. The net shattered, every screen in the building exploded in violet light. Guards dropped their weapons, clutching their heads, not in pain but in sudden overwhelming clarity. They saw their own fears, their own smallness. The officials fled in chaos, but Lisa stood firm. "This ends now," she announced to the crowd. "This is not how we treat those who save us." From that day, Earth changed. Not by law but by choice. People began to look up. Not with fear but with wonder. Kayla walked the streets, no longer hidden. No longer feared. Children waved at her and she waved back. She started teaching not just soldiers, but anyone who wanted to. Learn how to listen to the quiet voices in the dark. How to stand firm when everything pulls you down. Lisa remained at her side always. Not as a captain, but as a friend, as something deeper. Neither dared name. One evening they stood on a hill outside the city, watching the twin moons of Mars rise in the distance. "Do you ever miss your home?" Kayla asked. Lisa thought for a moment. "My home was always out there in the unknown. But now it is here with you." Kayla leaned her head on Lisa's shoulder. "For the first time, then we build something new," she said. "Not a weapon, not a shield, but a home, and far beyond the edge of known space." The last of the devourers turned away. Not because they were defeated, but because they finally understood some things cannot be consumed. Love was not weakness. It was the final frontier, and they were not ready to face it. So they fled into the deeper, dark, leaving soul system to its fragile, beautiful light. Kayla closed her eyes, not to sleep but to dream, and for the first time in centuries her dreams were quiet. No screams. No silence. Just two hearts beating in the same rhythm under the same sky, and that was enough.